Thank you for tuning in. You're watching Burnham Podcast on YouTube or maybe on Rumble. You can also find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. So wherever you found it, know that you can find it other places too. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, here's how you can help. Head over to patreon.com/Burnham Project. Thank you very much. So tonight's guest is a guy that I've known for almost 30 years now. He's been a football coach at the high school level, the college level. He's been in pro ball. He's been out of football. He's been back in football. Right now, he's the head coach at Unity Christian School, who just won their state championship here in Georgia 3 days ago, which will still be a week until you see the anyway. State champion football coach David Humphreys. So glad to have him on tonight. That's who we talk to. Welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. So you coach in GAPS, which is the Georgia Association of Private and Parochial Schools.
That's correct.
And you play state championship games on site. How cool would it be if GAPS had a one-location championship game like what GHSA's got?
Well, I think first of all, the problem is that, Friday night, the people of Floyd County really showed up.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they would have driven to Atlanta. Because I had a bunch of folks, I had a bunch of buddies that invited people because of that.
Well, I got invited.
See, yeah. So, and then I would think that same thing with, Albany.
Yeah.
I mean, you think if you split the difference between us, that's still 2.5 hours
right.
on Friday night. And I think that you would have, obviously parents would show up.
Yeah.
But would you just get the buddies?
Yeah. Well, what I thought was, I guess there are 2 8-man and 2 11-man divisions.
Yeah, but they're getting ready to change all that.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting ready to go to 9-man next year, and everything's going to be 1.
Okay.
And
so there's not going to be 8 or 11, just 9.
Okay. And I've got real mixed emotions about it. Really, I'm kind of sore about it because we're really trying to appease the 11-man people.
Yeah.
Because there's only 7 11-mans right now. So there's only actually 1 level for 11-man.
Okay.
And there's only 7 of them, but they've been fluctuating. So people have been dropping and going.
Right.
And that's not a good thing. You need to stay in your lane and just so everybody gets comfortable and familiar. Yeah. So what they're going to do is now there's no longer a choice. You have to play. If you're in GAPS, you got to play 9-man. So even if you got the numbers, and there's only a couple of teams that really has, and they can't sustain it. Year in, year out. Just like a single A team. Single A team. Really, just up and down because you have that one senior class, and all of a sudden you're down for a year or two.
Right.
Well, it's even worse with them.
Well, I'm sure. You got 16 guys on your roster, and 6 of them graduate, and you're in trouble.
Yeah, what was it? My first year, we had 5 seniors, and all of a sudden, boom. And then last year we had 5. Last year we had 5. This year we only had 3. And so. Golly, we had 5 9th graders start. Yeah. Sure.
So you had 8th graders out there.
I had an 8th grader, that scored that scored touchdowns, man. Yeah, he's a good player, and it's Brady King, and
I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah, Brady King. His dad is actually the chairperson of the board out there, but Brady is I say strange in a good way in that being an 8th grader, being talented, and he don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
He's very analytical. He's just up for anything that you want to do, and he competes obviously at a very high level, and he's not intimidated by it. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns 3 weeks ago. We brought him.
What do you have? 3 or 4 Friday night?
Well, no. I don't think he didn't have any Friday night. He had.
Maybe I'm thinking about somebody different.
No, okay. So we had the 2 receiver. One receiver had 3. The other receiver had 2, and then Evan had 2 or 3 rushing, and that was kind of it. But Isaiah Giddens, who's a ninth grader.
Holy smokes, that
he's
kid.
He's the one that locked down their senior
He
receiver.
took the deep ball away.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking about it today.
Let's go ahead and get this.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Pull your mic up like fist distance away from your face.
Okay.
You'll be good right there.
Right, okay.
So we were just talking off air, and I'll get him to edit that back in so that won't be wasted, but we'll be officially podcasting now. So we're talking about Isaiah Giddens?
Yeah, Isaiah, yeah. Yeah, Isaiah is that ninth grader that, what was funny was Coach Green, who I know we'll talk about, is the defense coordinator. And as we were watching film, he's like, whenever I was thinking about what kids we had that could match up with their number 6, he goes, Isaiah was the only one that had the hips to do it.
Oh, man.
And so, for us to think that we're going to take a ninth grader and stick him out there and tell him to lock down a senior, and that kid, and I went up to him after the game and just, expressed to him what I thought about him, because he made a couple of really nice catches.
Yeah.
But we shut down the deep ball on him, and I say Isaiah did. And and the thing about Isaiah is he's that kid that will he will do exactly what he's coached to do.
He seems like
and he
it.
don't deviate from it. Most kids will kind of he don't deviate. He just does what you ask him to do. And so that makes it a whole lot of fun because you kind of know what you're going to get with him. And so I think our team too, when we saw that they weren't going to get quick strikes on us over the top, I think probably after the second one, because I think the third one he broke up, he nearly intercepted. He was out of bounds. He slapped it with both hands.
Yeah, made a great play.
I think our guys, subconsciously kind of clicked in and thought, okay, we don't have to be perfect every play because we've got guys over the top.
Right. Well, there was a moment there where you could see where the game was competitive. They scored first, up front.
Yeah.
And then there was a moment where you could see the light come on for your guys.
Yeah.
We can beat these guys.
Yeah, sure. And if you would have talked to me last week, if we'd have talked last week, I was very cautious because I knew they were older than us.
Right.
And, I've mentioned that I felt like I've been coaching lab puppies for, 8 weeks. They're fine one moment, you haul a squirrel and you lose them for 3 plays.
Right.
But I will say this, Danny, that over the last 3 games, we started seeing, especially our defense, starting to become very structured.
Yeah.
It wasn't Lone Rangers running all over the place. We were structured. And so Friday night, if I had the film, I could show you where when they were running ISOs on us, our linebackers are taking on with the right shoulder, spilling it to the unblocked guy.
Yeah.
They were doing just the opposite. Their linebackers were running into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know we got really excited. We didn't see it during the game, but once we started watching film, I thought, these guys are seeing what we've talked about for the whole last really 3 weeks.
Right.
And our Mike linebacker was the difference in the game Friday night. William Wilson, he's another ninth grader. And so his problem has been that he's played flat-footed all year. So he's not trusting his eyes. So he has to wait to see before he takes off. Well, they ran a stretch play on us. I think it was like the second play of the game, maybe the first play of the game, actually. And he hesitates, breaks, makes like a tackle for a 6-yard gain.
Yeah.
Nearly breaks the edge. And then it clicked on for him, and he realized, okay, whenever he opens it, I got to be gone.
Yeah.
And after that, all those 6-yard gains turned into 2-yard gains.
Yeah.
And he was single tackling their running back, number 6 once again. And so that was really big, and we had a sense that was kind of happening. But in the middle of a game, you just know that you got guys making plays, but you're not seeing, or at least we're not seeing exactly that they're using the exact technique. And so that was huge. We knew what our 2 linemen were going to do. We got the best 2 linemen in the state.
Right. Those guys were good.
Elliott Whiteside and Davis Blankenship. But only 2 though. Right. And so what I mean by that, they're only 2 out of the 8. And so other guys have got to step up, and then to think that we had, our whole linebacking core, every linebacker we have is ninth graders except for one.
Wow.
And that kid actually played more of a defensive end position Friday night. It's Ben Rook.
Yeah.
So
Ben had a great game.
Oh, he had a great game. And he played with a very high motor. He was the guy that chased a lot down and kept cutbacks from happening.
Right.
And, kind of an unsung hero. They were coming at him. He was taking on double blocks and extending the edge until our guys could get there. So, I was just very pleased, more so that we could see, the coaching coming out in the kids, because that was the only chance that we had with those guys. So, I was pumped about that.
Well, we saw Isaiah was the first kid that I noticed that did things like it was his mission in life.
Sure.
And the ball would go into the air and he just became a hawk and tracked it down, found the receiver's hands, did all the stuff he's supposed to do. And I thought that kid's got fantastic instincts.
Yeah. Right.
And then he of course he does, but to see him do it over and over and over again, that's coaching, and he's paying attention to what he's doing.
And I think the one thing that we've preached, and I think early in the season, obviously, when I talk about lab puppies, is that I'm a no excuse guy.
Yeah.
So no excuses. And I don't believe because they're older than us that they're better than us or anything. I just do your job.
Right.
And I think that he's definitely one that's bought into that. In that he knows that he's going to be coached hard. But that, just because he don't do things quite right every single time, it's not that he's going to be blown up. He's just going to be coached hard.
Right.
And so he's gotten very comfortable with that. And he listens to your corrections. Like, for instance, one thing we told with him is get your hands on him, Like a ninth grader, because if you don't get your hands on him, and even on the outs, the kid, he probably had 4 catches on Isaiah, 10-yard outs. But Isaiah, and give him credit, I mean, they threw a great ball.
Yeah.
But to think that a high school player is going to make a throw to the field on a 10 to 14-yard out consistently,
right?
Is a major undertaking.
Yeah.
And they did, but Isaiah was there to make the tackles when he did it. But we gave him that, and we never gave up the big ball.
Right. No, you consistently took the big, and it seemed like that was game plan for them. They had a good quarterback, and they had the kid that was really fast and could get downfield. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like once you took that away and they realized that was not going to be there for them, they started having to go different directions, and they got uncomfortable, which is what you want.
Yeah, well, we had a couple of tells on them, kind of knowing what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get the ball to their playmaker, but it was a little too obvious. And so we had a couple of stunts that we were putting in. A guy that, didn't have a whole lot of tackles in the game, but had a whole lot of quarterback knockdowns.
Yeah.
Was Cooper Mathis. He was our backside linebacker who was coming on
all night long.
And so he was making the quarterback have to hurry the throws. And so those are things. I mean, he's not in the stat book. You don't see him in the stat book come up, but he was a huge part because I knew that the only way that their passing game was going to hurt us is that if he could just had time to sit back there and throw the football.
Yeah, and he would have done it too, man.
That's right. And so because of that, and what we were doing with him and Jordan Wilkerson coming off these 2 stunts, we really limited the amount of time that he had to make his decisions.
Yeah. So let's backtrack just a little bit. We were talking a little before about 11-man ball and 8-man ball. Sure. We got into 9-man a little bit. I'm trying to pick up some of the nuances of 8-man ball while I'm watching. It's not the same game that we played with the Rome Renegades.
No, it's not. Matter of fact, this is a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this game, you have to have 5 men on the line of scrimmage. Okay. So with that being said, though, that means that for the most part, you've got 4 eligible receivers. Okay, so 4 of your 8 are eligible receivers.
Is this including one of your down guys?
Well, you can. Same rule, covered man. If you're covered, you're ineligible. But like we threw a pass to our guard Friday night. We were in an unbalanced formation, so he was uncovered. So he's considered the inbound line scrimmage.
Okay.
We motioned across to mess with the linebacker's eyes, and he slipped up underneath him. And it was a big. That was a big play. That was Kyler Williams, and need to come back and talk about him because he's one that got hurt early in the season and got to come back. But anyhow, so with arena football or indoor ball, we had very strict rules on this. We can put our defensive front anywhere we want to. The big problem that you have in this game, and kind of a rule of thumb, is that in order to stop the run, you've got to put one more in the box than we can block.
Right.
But the problem with that is that when you do that, then you have to play man coverage on the outside.
Right.
Okay? So if you want to go to a zone coverage, then you have to take one out of the box, which means, like we did 3 weeks ago, we're going to run for 400 yards.
Right. You give up
So
numbers.
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Are they in man coverage or are they in zone? Are you going to get beat by the deep ball or are we going to run the ball? Now, the other part of that is this. In our offensive scheme, our running back is a quarterback.
Yeah.
Our who we call the running back is really a fullback.
Right.
He's blocking, leading on ISOs. So teams that have a quarterback that runs the ball gets up a man on you, but teams that run the running back go down a man.
I got you.
So those are some of the nuance that I had to learn. When you spread your guys out, you only got 3. Well, they got 4. They can always send 4.
Yeah.
And so it took me a year and a half. We've got hot reads. The quarterback's got hot reads. If they give you a 4-man, we throw instantly to a single receiver, and if you recall from the game, I'm pretty notorious for putting trips on one side, and we got Jay Davis sitting on the back side, and if teams are going to play us in that man coverage, the thing about Jay is Jay don't have tremendous speed, but nobody can out-jump him.
Oh, he could go up and get it.
He can go, and he's had some interceptions this year. I think he's had 5.
Wow.
He's had some circus catches on interceptions.
Yeah.
So our deal, talking to Evan Whiteside, who's a quarterback, he puts the ball up to him, and as long as he's got enough on it, Jay will go get it. And his first big one, that whatever it was, 91 yards or whatever, that was I thought it bounced off the defender. It didn't, but the defender got a hand on it.
Yeah. But
he's got such great hand-eye coordination that he's stuck with it. And
he competed for a lot of those balls.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And the other funny thing about him is that he's from the Bahamas.
Oh, okay.
He's never played the game of football. And the first 2 touchdown passes he called. He walked to me on the sideline and said, "I got him, Coach." And so I'm like,
you got to love that in a player, man.
Yeah, and I mean that's a kid who really don't understand what "I got him" means.
Yeah.
Other than and early in the year he didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Later in the year, obviously. And matter of fact, after the first one, I told him, I said, "Look, as long as you keep producing, when you make the call, I'll make the call."
Yeah.
And so that's kind of always been our deal, and so. That's kind of the essence of 8-man. It's man coverage. It's on now. One thing is our field's only 40 yards wide,
right?
So it's the bottom of the numbers on the bottom of the numbers. But I will tell you that there's more space with 8 men on 40 yards than there is with 11 on 53.
Yeah.
And
a little bit easier to get to the edge.
Yeah, and so there is so much space. And I know whenever Coach Grain came to us, man, it really was messing with him because he wanted to stay in zone coverage. I'm like, you can't.
Yeah, not
we
on that
do
field.
it, but you can't stay there.
Right.
The other thing that where he has made a huge impact is that when I took over, the one thing I realized is that you have to be able to open field tackle.
Yeah.
If you can't open field tackle, I mean, you're a missed tackle away from a touchdown every time because of the field. So I really think that's what sets us apart in a lot of ways is that we tackle live every week.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm not one that's worried about getting guys hurt. I believe that they got to.
Well, there's no way to practice tackling except to tackle.
That's right. You can tackle dummies, but dummies don't move.
Yeah.
And we do that, but we're gonna live tackle them.
Yeah.
And I think over the last 4 weeks, our tackling, because we were atrocious early in the season. Just not knowing. You know.
Well, let's talk about early in the season. You guys lost the first 3.
First 3. Yeah. Well, it was really weird, Danny. I got to my 5th quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I've never gotten a 5th quarterback in
Who
my
has
career.
5 quarterbacks ever?
And we don't even have 5 quarterbacks.
Right.
And I said, we were playing rock, paper, scissors on the sideline.
Yeah.
But, right before the season started, we lost our quarterback. And I can tell it now, but he had tested for COVID back in July, but didn't tell us, and he didn't know.
Oh, no.
He went in for a sinus infection, but they tested him. Well, they did an audit at the hospital just randomly, and it flagged him 3 days before the first game.
Oh, no.
So Kyler Williams, who was playing Mike linebacker and tight end for us, could throw the football. And he was a bigger kid, and being a sophomore, because the next guy that I had was Isaiah Giddens.
Yeah.
And he was a 9th grader. So we put Kyler in. first game, and he breaks a couple runs and all this stuff, and we're down on the goal line, and we run an ISO with the quarterback, and he gets tackled and twists, and when he does, he tears his labrum in his hip.
Oh.
So he tears his labrum. So there goes the Mike linebacker. There goes the quarterback. So then we put in Isaiah Giddens. So Isaiah's had all of about 10 snaps all week. Well, he gets hit in the game. He gets hit in the game and gets a concussion.
Oh, no.
So I'm looking and going,
This is your first game of the season?
Your first game of the season.
Oh.
So Isaiah finished the game, but then later on he started exhibiting some signs.
Right.
So then we lost him for a couple of weeks. And then about that time, Jordan Wilkerson had dealt with some stuff. Jordan finally came out. We had another kid that we were – really, I was like, I don't know what we're going to go to. I've got no idea.
Run out of bodies sooner or later,
that's the whole deal.
Regardless of who can throw the ball.
And so, obviously, whenever Jordan showed up, then we're like, okay, all right, because Jordan can throw the football.
Yeah.
And then we got Evan back, and so then we go down to Central Christian, the team that we beat second round.
Mm-hmm.
We're up 22-0, and we lose 5 players in a series and a half. We lose both corners. We lose Dreo and Jay, who are both our receivers.
Right. I was going to say, you lose 2 guys, you lose 4.
We lose the Mike linebacker.
Oh,
Willie,
no.
he gets a concussion in the game. So, and we had 3 out. So we're down 8 starters, and they're all sitting on the sideline. We've only got 10 kids left, and they came back and beat us.
Wow.
I had a tight end playing corner. Wilkerson was playing corner.
You're just trying to fill spots.
And so we're just like, everybody was frustrated, just because of we didn't feel like, we had our bullets in our gun, and it was frustrating. Practices were really tough because we just didn't know who we were going to have on the field. And so,
right.
Anyhow, but I can say this, that the kids hung in there, obviously.
Yeah.
And then Evan come back, and when Evan came back in that Central game, but he had to play Mike linebacker.
Right.
And he tweaked a little bit of a knee during the game. And so we're just like, okay, man, we just got to get some folks back. And then, then we had an open week, and that was big.
Open week always helps when you're beat up.
We had the open week, and so we got a couple of the guys back, and then we started rolling pretty good. We started being adequate.
Right.
And rolled off 4, and then Holy Spirit beat us up pretty bad. But I think the Holy Spirit game was one that woke us up because I think at one time we had 5 ninth graders starting, and they had a running back that's 230.
Wow.
And so, our Mike linebacker's 132, the other one's 138. Jeremy's like,
you wanted to get in there and fit that run.
That guy's 220. He's 220. He said, but that thigh's only 40 pounds. Go tackle a 40-pound
thigh. Oh, man, there you go.
So, but I think that it woke him up, and because we got beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I was concerned about last Friday, was that if a brush fire starts, can we put it out?
Yeah.
With ninth grade, and I remember walking out there, before the game, and I walked up to Coach Green, and I said, look, man, whatever you do, enjoy the heck out of this game. I don't care what happens. You got to love what's happening tonight.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I knew we could beat them. I didn't, but the reality is you still have to go beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew that we had some young guys who were starting to flex their muscles a little bit, but I just didn't know if it was enough. And man, it was more than enough.
Oh, you guys boiled over, man.
Yeah.
Played a fantastic game.
I was so proud of him.
Yeah. So you've mentioned Coach Green a couple times. He's been a head coach before.
Yeah.
Was it like adding him to your staff?
Well, Coach Green went through some health problems.
Right.
And so I also I'm the coaches minister for FCA here in Rome, Floyd County. And so my job is I go around and hang out with coaches.
Yeah.
It's a dream job, And I say I'm the big distractor because I show up, I talk about anything other than football.
Right.
And I just want to be their buddies, man. That's it. And so Coach and I did not know each other real well because at that time our Murchie was not a school. I was spread too thin.
Yeah.
And so Actually, my boss at the time, Ken Howard, was a little bit more in charge of that.
Ken is your boss?
Yeah,
Come on, man.
And so, but anyhow, so he and I, got to know each other a little bit. And so after the season, whenever he decided to step down, I called him for a mental health check. And I said, hey man, let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
Let me buy you lunch, Chick-fil-A, and just talk. And like I said, I didn't know his story. I just knew that he'd gone through the ringer.
Right.
So as we're sitting there talking and just visiting, he messed up and he said, well, I think what I'm going to do, Coach, is once I kind of catch my breath, is I may go over into Alabama and just go kind of help some guys that I know over there. And I said, well, won't you come and coach with me? Because I'd lost my defense coordinator.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you come and coach with me and let me do the heavy lifting? You just come have fun and love the kids.
Right. And
let me do everything else. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, we'll figure everything else out. And man, what a great move that was.
Yeah, yeah.
What was funny is that he calls me. So we're getting ready for spring practice, right? And with spring, you're always trying to figure out what players you got. And he's like, look, man, Coach, we got to do something. I got to do something to build a little bit of rapport with these kids before I start chewing them out. So I said, all right. So we went down to the axe throwing, and then we took the whole team down there to let him have a night just hanging out.
You just hang out with the guys.
Hang out with the guys, and that's where he got to know them, was at axe throwing. So,
that's cool.
So, yeah, so he has been a huge and I knew this, and I told him this. He had to do the same thing that I had to do in learning the game because, like I said, there's some nuances there that bit me my first year.
Yeah.
Because on the board and how it translates on the field are two different things.
Of course, yeah.
And he had the same struggles, and I knew that I had to let him kind of live through it a little bit, but I kept pushing him and prodding him and going, okay, I kind of know here, But matter of fact, that happened to us for, Wednesday before the Sherwood game. He came up to me and goes, it just happened. I just got bit by the 8-man game. And we had to change a scheme that we were doing defensively.
It just wouldn't work in 8-man ball?
Because what we were doing was they run the power. They're a big power team. So they kick out, they pull a backside guard. And so he was on the wrong shoulder, which means that your defensive lineman's going underneath and bouncing it to the outside.
Right.
The problem is we ain't got outside linebackers.
There's no outside.
So we were bouncing it to grass.
Yeah.
And he just walk up, had his head down. He goes, okay, 8-man just bit me. He goes, we got to box it. We got to bring it back inside. I said, yeah, I knew it. I was just waiting for you to see it. So, but yeah, so it's been awesome, having him on staff and obviously with all of his knowledge. Because he is a student of the game. He's been sending me messages for 3-4 days now. You know, look at this kid. Look at this kid. Look at this.
I mean,
that's exciting.
As a ball coach, you never really turn it off, right?
No. And I will say this. I mean, I've been coaching now. I think this was year 37. I think.
You think?
I think it is. And I've been in 4 championship games. In 37, because you never know. I mean, there's guys that go their whole career, and never play in that game, whatever that game is, because football to me is very relative,
right?
And I remember my early years in coaching, especially when I was at Rome, and we had some of those magical years, especially that first year, and I remember sitting on the field when we got beat by Statesboro, and I was thinking, man, I'd love to experience this one more time. Because and I think the weird thing about, playing in a championship game, winning a championship, is that it becomes very anticlimactic once you finish the game. It was a journey getting there. Yeah. And that's what the kids, yesterday I went up to school and I was doing some laundry and they were basketball and that's what they were talking, just kind of being a little bit lost because you're waiting for the next thing. Yeah. The next thing.
Well, and you have that every Monday during the season, and then after that, it's just over.
It's weird. You're like, oh, you want, we did, and it was exciting in that moment. But then you start thinking about those little crazy things that happened throughout the course of the year that really was a part that really molded your team. Not the win or it was the play, this weird play that happened.
Well, a play that happened or something happened on a Tuesday where a light bulb came on.
A light bulb came on. Yeah.
So you said you've been in the big game 4 times. Is this the first one you've won?
First one, yeah.
I couldn't remember. I knew you would have been an assistant then, but I don't know if you were at LaGrange when they won it.
No. So I came in actually the year after they won the national championship. Okay. And but then, I was 2 with the Renegades, so we had 2 national titles there.
Right.
And then last year. Now I've been in, a lot of quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And a lot of semis.
Yeah.
Not a lot, a couple semis.
Yeah.
But to get to that point and to sit there and go, it's been a huge blessing,
Yeah.
And I will tell you that, losing the game, we talked to the kids like, all year about 12 seconds because we got beat with 12 seconds to go last year.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, and when I told the kids 12 seconds, it wasn't that we let down for 12 seconds.
Right.
It was just that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because we played our tails off. But I just didn't want us to have that feeling again.
Oh.
But I remember walking off the field, not feeling, obviously you're disappointed for a moment. And then you start thinking about those seniors and the last time you're going to get to coach them in that realm and all that. And those seniors coming back and hanging out with me during football games this year, very special.
That's cool.
A couple of them being on the field Friday night with us. One of them walked up to me, Price Dyer walked up to me and goes, "Man, if you wouldn't have been involved, we'd have won that last year. Just give me a hard time, And but he's like he's like a second son to me,
Yeah.
And it means a lot, And then Bailey Moeller, who's at Reinhardt, he was there as well. Just so I go real quick to those guys, and there's no sadness other than I don't get to coach them again.
Right. Yeah. Well, you look at a group of kids at the end of the season, whether you are 0-10 or you're state champs, you look at this group and you realize at one point that's the last time all these guys are going to be together
That's
ever.
Right. And that's right.
And then they move on and do hopefully great things in their life.
But that's your hope.
Yeah.
As a coach, and that's some of your proudest moments. Whenever you get the text about success in life, kids, marriage, whatever it may be. So.
Yeah, man, I had a guy in here last night that I coached back in 2008. And we lost a game with the last second, and he put it on himself. This is what I did, and I blew the game. And I got to tell him, I was like, "Hey, man, we were in cover 3. They threw the ball to the pylon, and you were the safety. It wasn't your fault." And he was like, he had this light bulb moment right in here last night. He was like, "Oh, thanks, coach." I hadn't been coaching in 10 years. But, yeah, it never ends, and you bump into these guys later, and they're successful. And that's what it's really all about, right?
Yeah, it really is, I tell you, the hard part is when they start, when you know their face, you know their walk, and for me, trying to pull a name. I always have had too many concussions, man. Well,
when I was 28 and I was coaching football and had been coaching for 2 or 3 years, I was proud that I could remember all the 139 guys that I'd coached, and I look back now and I go, what was that kid's name that did that thing that one time, But,
what's funny about me is I've never been a name guy. What I mean by that is I've been a nickname guy.
Yeah.
Or a number guy. Like a lot of coaches I've coached with knows every number.
Yeah.
I'm like, pfft. But what I am is your walk. So seeing you walk away from me, I can pretty much tell every player by their walk.
That's cool.
I don't know why, but that's that's the one thing that I can
just your thing.
I can recall.
Yeah. So we're talking right now tonight in 2023, and you were the coach at Unity Christian School, which is a tiny, I guess, K through 12 private school in Rome, Georgia. Man, you've been everywhere. How did you get here?
Well,
we're going way back, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was at Rome, and then whenever I left Rome, I went to the Renegades. Okay, and
just the jump from high school to pro ball.
To pro ball, and had some great opportunities there. Phenomenal. Got to live differently. The game was different. And then I went from the Renegades to the Georgia Force, which is owned by the Falcons.
Yeah.
And we were over at Flowery Branch, and so I was starting to find maybe a path to get to some bigger football, right?
Yeah.
But there was a cost to that, and the cost was family. And I never made apologies for that, still don't to this day.
Yeah.
But my oldest daughter, my first year at Rome, she was a senior. But when we moved back to Rome, we let her stay with her grandparents. And she graduated from Ridgeland High School. So, we won our first region championship up there at Ridgeland on senior night.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't in the hallway with her.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then my middle daughter, she was in elementary and all that stuff. So that's fine. So then whenever I left the Georgia Force, and it was a contract issue, and just, I saw the underbelly of the business.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, we sign up for that, but you still, you're just frustrated. And so I'm like, okay, all right. So I started interviewing around, and I'm originally from Arkansas. So there was a big school out there that they were just opened up, and I was actually pheasant hunting out in Kansas, get a phone call. And I go talk to them, and I come back here, and I'm interviewing all over Atlanta, and I'm like, I just don't want any of these jobs. I mean, I don't want to go to any, I don't want to go to inner city Atlanta or wherever. And then I finally get, while I was in Kansas, I get a call from Trine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made the decision. I told myself that I was going to be in the same high school as my daughter.
There you go.
And so we lived in Rome, and I told him, I said, that was 2007, 8, housing market was horrible.
Right.
I said, I ain't moving because I ain't taking a bath in my house.
Yeah.
And so we drove every day. So her and I got to ride for 4 years.
That's cool.
She was a trainer on my team, and it was a great time. And I remember people telling me, you're making a career killer. It's a career killer. And I'm like, nah, it's family. Yeah. Well, we'd had such success at Rome, and we'd had so much success with the Renegades, and went on to the Georgia Force. I mean, just really, and everybody's like, you selling yourself short. And I'm like, no, man. I mean, that's exactly. No. I mean, I tell folks, until you've been a special teams coordinator on an arena football team. All right. I mean, our first game we played in Arizona. We scored every single possession.
Mm-hmm.
Never had a third down.
Yeah.
And had to recover an onside kick to win 83-82.
Woo, that's arena football, man.
That was arena football.
Yeah.
And I mean, and so, that's 160 points.
Right.
A lot of kickoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm in charge of that. So anyhow, so I was ready to dial it back just a hair.
Yeah.
So I went there, and then I don't know. Things were good for a couple of years, and then we were just talking about single A ball and how we had this one team that was really good, and we had I think it was 11 bodies, but it was 19 starters that we lost off.
Wow!
And we knew, and there was really not a whole lot coming behind us. And so I was starting to get into ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I was running a men's group from Calvary Baptist, and I knew the Lord was working on me a little bit, but I wasn't for sure exactly what that meant. Okay, so I remember saying, "Look, I went over and I was a consultant at Gordon Central, and we were really good that year.
Yeah,
and I was just there kind of as a defensive analyst and helped out, but I saw that the kids, man, there was some huge struggles within families and stuff.
Yeah.
And whenever the head coach left, Coach Fisher left, I remember just sitting there going, Lord, if I can have that job, it'll be a ministry.
Yeah.
I don't care being a public school system. Every day that I'm going to preach to them, and that's what I did.
Right.
And so we went over there, and huge struggle, but hopefully we made impact with people's lives, and I left there. When I left there, I actually told the principal, I said, look, I can take the beatings. That's not the problem.
Right, yeah.
But I think the kids need to hear a different voice, and it's not defeatism or anything like that. It's just, we're playing some dang good football teams.
Yeah.
And so I got out of it. And when I got out of it, there was a guy that's kind of familiar around here. His name's Chris McDaniel. He was the original keyboard player for Confederate Railroad.
Yeah.
So he and I hooked up. And we started doing some men's stuff, and I started doing some mission work and prisons, and actually went overseas, just trying to figure out what was next. Because I was teaching, then I became ordained as a pastor.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting in church, and I get a text, "Hey man, I need to talk to you." And it was Russ Dyer. And so the year before, they during COVID, they'd called me and asked me if I'd take on the team. I'm like, no, I won't do it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the right time. They actually won a state championship with that during COVID. And so what had happened is that they'd had some kids leave and a couple coaches leave, and man, they were close to folding the tent, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
So I showed up, and it's 8-man football. My first practice, we got 8 players, and initially I didn't take on right away as a head coach, but I said, okay, if we're going to do this, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it my way. And we had a bunch of kids come out and start playing, and we ended up making it to the semis that first year, and ended up fourth.
Oh, wow.
Got beat by Johnson's Ferry, who ended up getting beat by Sherwood,
right?
For the state championship. And so that was my first year. And I'll be honest with you, Dan. It's a lot of fun, and it's football. I mean,
right.
I told them, I said, look, we're not going to play touch football. This is not a rec team. We're going to hit folks, and that's exactly what we've done.
You guys were physical.
Yeah.
And even against Sherwood was way bigger than you guys, especially right up front. And you guys, they played behind their pads, and they played rough physical football, and I was impressed. I didn't expect that from 8-man ball.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Well, and that was the thing that I saw when I first clicked on the tape. I'm like, we're playing touch football. People are just running plays. Nobody's hitting anybody. And my calling card, I've always believed I'm a kind of an old school coach.
Yeah.
And people don't like the word, but I'm like, I believe in extreme violence on the football field.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard you say that when you were at Rome,
I know I had a guy saying, last week said, well, you're a Christian school. I said, well, we're Old Testament Christians. We're more like Joshua.
Right, yeah.
But in high school football, and I think this, going all the way back to our Rome days.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and look at the Rome teams, so this is before me with Coach Pickett.
Yeah.
Because whenever Coach Pickett took over, that's whenever we really got rolling.
Yeah.
We didn't have a ton of kids going and signing scholarships.
Right.
I mean, we had great high school football players, but we did not. We were always short, a step slow. But what they would do is they'd knock your teeth out your head. And the reason they would is because that's what we did at practice every single day.
Yeah.
I tell folks, there was several times when I would get mad and we would do offense versus defense, and we'd be in helmets only.
Yeah.
And the coach was like, Coach, I'm like, I don't care. We're not going to
get you fired these days.
Yeah. But that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And but what I found was this, and this is what I was telling some of the coaches the other night, is when you practice hard, when you truly practice hard and you challenge your players every day at practice, when it happens and somebody goes down, the next guy is prepared.
Yeah.
Because he's had to face the same challenges.
Right.
Whenever all you're doing is trying to protect everybody, then the only people who are learning is that group that you're trying to protect, and the others are in a safe place.
Right.
And, I tell folks all the time, I do not want my practice field to be a safe place. And I hope you understand what I mean there. It's not so much, it's not just physical, it's mental, being called out, holding kids 100% accountable, coaches as well, 100% accountable, and trying to teach. Like one of my big sayings is this: never let one cost you two. So don't let one play cost you two plays.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that don't come naturally. You have to learn that.
Right.
People talk about having a short memory. 15-year-old boys, 14-year-old boys don't have short-term memory.
No, they don't.
But I think they do over time. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but our middle school won the state championship.
Yeah.
Well, see, our middle school practices with our varsity every day.
Oh, wow.
Now they're not allowed to hit each other.
Yeah.
But they go through group together. Our varsity guys will hold dummies for them. So what does that do? Those little youngins have to sit out there and listen to us coach with big voices.
Yeah.
And they get over a lot of that anxiety that these kids have when they sit back and hear these guys across the way yelling and screaming. And they realize that what they're doing is really yelling and screaming instruction. They're not berating them, per se.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that last year, and I just felt like it's paid huge dividends, because when our middle school steps out there, the people that are facing them are not who they face on during the week.
Right.
So that's kind of been the deal. And, I just want them, I want the guys to feel the feeling of when you beat somebody that you've truly beat them, you've not just snuck by them.
Right.
You know, and so that was the thing that I was so excited about Friday night because, you know, last year, you know, the game was a great game. It was back and forth. This year was a little different. I mean, we didn't get any film on these guys.
Really?
They wouldn't exchange film with us.
Oh.
And, you know, we had to kind of try to find, but we didn't have the film from the week before, you know, which, you know, that's a no-no.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, you know, I don't get mad. I keep receipts. I'll remember that. But you know, but I, you know, I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, and we didn't make an issue out of it. I didn't even tell the guys until really, I think until halftime.
Wow.
And I told them, I said, look, those guys didn't come here to play 2 quarters.
Yeah.
They came here to play 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure that these next 2 quarters are nothing more than a nightmare. I mean, that's what we told them. And we do that through putting those shuts on top of people. So
man, you scored, I guess, right before halftime and got an okay like a lead.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you know, they went up 8-6 on us, and I think we exchanged punts, and then we hit them. That was the end of the first quarter. It was 8-6. And then what did we score? 24 in the 8, and I think we scored 3 but we hit the big one to Jay.
Yeah.
And then if you remember, Isaiah got the interception.
Yeah.
And that's when we ran the guard pass, and that put us up. And then we stopped. I want to say we stopped them.
Yeah, there was a stop in there.
There was a stop, and then Evan had he had about a 30-yard run. Mm-hmm. And you know, and then I tell you the play. I don't want to say the play of the game, but one of the big plays of the game was the last play of the halftime when they ran the slant on us, and Dreo, picture perfect. He got long, came around the backside, came along, and batted it down.
Yeah,
and we actually have 2. We had an end zone camera and a sideline camera, and watching it from the end zone, man. I mean, it was
a great play.
It was a great play. I mean, I know they were screaming at pass interference. He didn't touch.
No, it was fantastic.
Great job.
Yeah,
but that was big because if they'd have scored there, I mean, we were coming, and plus I knew we were getting the ball coming out at halftime.
Right.
So yeah, you know, at that point in time, I'm kind of in clock management to some degree, you know, and I know quarterbacks want to throw it over the snap. I'm like, no, we're going to win ball game.
Well, that's what I saw a thing, and it brought back all kinds of memories. And I won't do it because we're on video, and I don't want any of your opponents to see it. But you do a little hand thing when you just want to run that play worked. Like, let's do it again.
Yeah,
and it's real subtle.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and I saw your guys on the field doing it to you. They were like, hey, coach, that worked. Let's do it again. And you gave it back to them, and they did it, and you were biting it off in chunks.
Yeah. So that, you know, it's I mean, that's kind of our calling card, and that's what, you know, I want people to, you know, to see, because I think that we all have our opinions about 8-man, and I get it, I totally get it, but you know, I've had several of the coaches from around get to come see some games. They're like, man, you got some kids.
It's still football,
so we got kids that can play, absolutely, you know, and here's the crazy thing. These games could be monster long. We had a couple of games that went over 180 plays. 180. I had an official walk up to me. The second quarter of a game a couple of weeks ago went an hour and 15 minutes. Just the one quarter. And he goes, how long are these games? I'm like, man, they could be forever. He goes, I don't know if I'll ever coach. I mean, do another one of these.
Oh, man.
And so, you know, like a Ben Rook. Rook is playing out of 180. He played 150-something snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
Out there on both sides, covering kickoffs, you know, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. But I don't know. I found that amazing too. You know, you guys, I feel like they had probably twice as many players as you guys had too. But you get 8 guys, which translates into, you know, 16 spots.
Sure. And
you might have 14 guys on the roster, so like everybody's got to be ready.
Right.
You know, you talked about some of that too, but
well, I think that's one of the really neat things about this game is that you have to cross-train people.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have a guy who's playing offensive, defensive tackle, and then we've also got him where he can play a tight end position.
Yeah.
And our quarterback can play corner. He can play Mike linebacker.
Yeah.
We don't want him to, but he. You know,
right. We'd rather not.
And then, you know, we have receivers that are inside and outside receivers, and then they're also corners. And so, you know, that makes it a whole lot of fun because you're moving chess pieces in the course of a game. I mean, I tell you what, panic breaks out when you have a helmet malfunction. You're like, no,
yeah, right.
I got nobody.
There's no more people.
Special teams is a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, getting the right guys in and out, and having somebody that can hold a PAT or whatever.
Yeah,
but you're limited, and just based on sheer numbers. But
sure.
It'll be fun next year going to 9-man ball, right? And sorting that out.
Well, that will be fun of sorting it out. You know, I'm always up for that. And,
so who do you get back in 9-man?
I tell you, I know what I wish they would do, but they're not. They're going to end up putting another skill guy out there. What they need to do is what I believe they ought to do is make you have 6 on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
If you brought 6 on the line of scrimmage, then the defense would get a player back.
Right.
Because right now, like I said, defense is playing man coverage. And, of course, that's a nightmare for a defense coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living by it.
Right.
And so, but if you went to 6 men on the line, then you would get a linebacker in the box.
Yeah.
And so now you would get your numbers, they would be even, okay? And so if you want to play a guy over the top, you want to play some zone. I mean, we play zone.
Yeah.
We play zone.
You can see some zone out there.
But you have to, in several cases that we do, it's actually personnel grouping. So we have to bring in a personnel group.
Oh, wow.
To change it up a little bit because, when we do that, we try to get a little more speed at the defensive line position. And but I think what we'll end up getting is we'll get a skill guy back, and I know what people are going to want to do. Like us, we got trips and split, and people go, "I'll put a running back." I'm like, "No, we'll put another receiver out there."
Yeah.
Because we're going to make you have to cover them.
If you can spread that out,
because our quarterback can run,
Right.
So, but. Yeah, so we were talking about it actually today on the phone, and I'm like, well, I got to have a couple more weeks before I start trying to think about that.
Right, yeah. I sprung that on you. I'm
sorry.
No. Just won a state championship, and I'm talking about next year.
No, I mean, it's funny every time I pick up I look at a play that we've got, one of our good plays, and I'm like, okay, so what's added when I add another player to it?
Yeah.
So
well, that's the tough part, right? Is you may lose something that you felt like you were good at because you got to put another guy on the field.
That's right. And I will say that was one of my major concerns.
Yeah.
Because it's taken me this long to kind of get real comfortable with, what I'm seeing. And I will say that was another thing. When I went from 11-man to 8-man, the vision was fine, but when I went back from 8-man to 11-man. I'm like a blind man for about a year. I mean, I spent a lot of time practicing standing off at the sideline trying to get my vision back.
Yeah.
And it's just different brand.
Yeah. So you're coaching at a little tiny school with 8 men on the field at a time. Mm-hmm. There aren't 10,000 people in the bleachers or more. Apart from the pressure you put on yourself, does it feel the same?
Oh yeah, well the game, yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Whenever you get whenever I get into the game, it's all the exact same.
Yeah,
the same anxieties or whatever you have of the game. Obviously, I'm dealing with less players, so less problems.
Maybe until you run out of players, right?
Well, yeah. But I mean, less parents, and trying to keep all those pieces together. But we're also doing it with less people too.
Right.
I'm talking about support staff.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the thing about the game is that once we get on the field, and that's Jeremy said the same thing. It's football. Because especially the way we coach it, because. He's wanting to shut everybody out. We're not wanting to win the game 66-65.
Right.
I remember a couple of weeks ago we beat a team pretty bad, and I had a little 8th grade quarterback that came in, and his first completion was a 70-yard pick six.
Oh no!
And that's what broke the donut. And so defense coordinators, they want that donut.
Right.
And he comes stomping down the sideline, and I'm like, look, tough.
It's football.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's for us. I mean, we take great pride in that.
Yeah. So you, correct me if I'm wrong on this. You coached at UTC.
Okay, so I played at Arkansas Tech. Okay.
Okay.
Then I got hurt. My junior year. Didn't know. Well, I didn't know. Yeah. And so then I got medicaled out between my junior and senior year. So I started doing. I became a coach at the high school where I played at. student assistant while I was finishing up my degree. When I finished up my degree, the guy that was the head coach knew a guy like everybody does.
Right.
And so whenever Coach Akers, Fred Akers, left the University of Texas, he went to Purdue, and I went to Purdue as a graduate assistant.
Okay.
So
I forgot about Purdue.
I coached offensive tackles at Purdue for 2 years. And then I took a job in Orlando at a high school, and I was going down there on Thursday to accept the job, and on Tuesday I get a phone call from the University of Georgia. And Coach Dooley had just retired.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Goff came in. I worked with a guy in Pennsylvania at a camp, and they knew that I coached offensive tackles.
Yeah.
And we were going to more of a straight drop back pass, and they wanted somebody to coach offensive tackles. So I came to Georgia for Coach That would have been '89.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left Georgia and went to UT Chattanooga for 3 years and coached receivers and tight ends there.
You coached a famous guy there.
Yeah, Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
Terrell Owens. And he was a freshman my last year. And then when we left there, I took a job in at Northeast Louisiana, okay, which is now
it's Monroe now, right?
Yeah, it's Monroe.
Yeah.
Yep. I took a running back job there, and the day that we were moving, my wife, we were pregnant with our second daughter. We were moving, and the job fell through.
Oh.
Our apartment was in a Penske truck. We were headed to Monroe.
Oh, no.
And my head about exploded.
So you never made it to Monroe?
Never made it to Monroe.
Wow.
I called to find out where we were supposed to, and it had fallen through, and nobody had called me.
Oh.
And so then we had to, it was one of those moments, had to move in with the in-laws for 30 days.
Yeah.
I took a job in Houston, Texas. So I told myself, I'm going to coach in high school. I'm only going to coach in 2 states, either in Georgia or Texas. That's it.
Why not, right?
That was the only 2 states.
Yeah.
I loved Arkansas, but I just knew it was my time to be gone.
Yeah.
So I took a job in Houston, and then they put a hiring freeze on for the state. Nobody from outside the state could come into the state. So I lost that job, and I'm sitting there in May going, what in the world? And then one of the guys that got retained at Chattanooga was recruiting at LaGrange, and they needed an offensive line coach. And so that's how I got to LaGrange. And I was there 1 year. And then the guy that was the head coach at LaGrange, Gary Guthrie, got the job at Rome.
Yeah.
And so the day that I heard about it, I walked into him because I love Chattanooga, didn't know anything about Rome.
Yeah.
Loved Chattanooga. I said, look, Coach, I'd love to go with you. And he goes, absolutely. And so that's how I got to Rome.
Yeah.
And so 5 of us came up here along with the head coach, and I was there 11 years.
Was it? Holy smokes.
11 years,
Now, you were, how long were you the head coach?
4, the last
Okay.
4. So
I know you
I
were
became the head coach in 2001
Yeah.
to 2004. Actually left in February of 2005.
Okay. Yeah, because that was the time the Renegades were starting
that's
up.
when the Renegades started.
So I was thinking y'all came in here at 94.
94.
Spring of 94.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Would have been the spring of my freshman year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got our brains beat out a bunch that next fall, and then we came around.
It took us 2 years, you
Yeah.
know. And I'll never forget, us sitting in meetings going, why did we come here? Because first of all, the mentality was not what we wanted.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, Danny, whenever Coach Pickett, so we'd been there probably maybe 4 years, 5 years. We were starting to see the team taking on the personality that we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us sitting in the office one day and just going, I'm never going to a new place again. None of us had the energy because it took so much energy.
Well, you guys came in at a rough time, though. You came in, your first year there was the 3rd year in the existence of that school. So we're still ironing out East and West Rome. And maybe I don't block for you because you went to the others, and all that stuff. And we were those 3, 4, 5 years in, we're finding we're all Rome now.
Right,
we're finding that identity.
Right.
So you guys inherited a little bit of a mess.
Yeah, it was. It was a big mess. And there were still some faculty issues, all sorts of stuff going on, And, they just built the school and stuff. And so finances were tight.
Yeah.
And but the thing that we had, there was 5 of us, and we were all in the same boat together.
Mm-hmm.
And we all had each other's back, and there was no excuses amongst us.
Yeah.
And as harsh as we were in the halls, that's how harsh we were to each other in our meetings because we were that competitive.
Yeah.
And but it was all respectful,
Yeah.
We get mad those stuff, But at the end of the day, it was just that we felt like it. And what we saw was a glimmer of hope in some ninth graders. And we thought, man, there's 5 or 6 of them. Alvin Powell.
Yeah. Man.
There's Trey Williams. I mean, there's some cats that one day when they grow up, they're going to be hard to deal with, you know? And so, and that's what we kind of hung our hat on, building to that point, you know?
Yeah, so I guess the first year you come in, and that was in my 10th grade year, and Alvin and Trey and all those guys were freshmen. They were way better athletes than any of us. And you kind of hung, like you said, you hung your hat on them, and it pays off because my senior year, we're 9-1, and we're in the playoffs. And then they went on to do even, bigger and better things after they got rid of us.
But you know, it was just, that's the process that you really have to go through, and I will say this: it's sad because, first of all, you do have to have, you got to have some players,
right?
But then there has to be a willingness to work, and I don't think you can get it done in 2 years or 3 years. I think that, it takes a while, and unfortunately, in today's world, we're just not given a while to fix it, and but yeah, those were great learning years. I learned so much in those years about how to handle defeat, how to handle hard work, and we made no excuses. I mean, we were no excuse. I mean, I go back and look at all those coaches that I've coached with that were there, and I mean, it was a great staff. It wasn't a good staff. They were a great staff.
No, you guys had a different thing going. We had, like Danny Wiseman. There are very few people on earth I love and respect more than Danny Wiseman, and he was our head coach before you guys got there, and that was great. Rick Walker was fantastic, and there were some guys that coached football, whatever.
Right.
You guys came in and it was a different thing.
Yeah,
and you could tell that y'all were together.
Yeah.
Not that the other guys weren't, but they were still, working out east and west the same way we were. You guys didn't care about any of that.
No.
You came in and it was.
We took offense to it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody could blame you, but it took everybody to a different level.
Sure.
Because it was the unity and leadership.
Yeah.
And we saw that in you, and it bled off onto the guys. And that's the way it's got to be.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. But yeah, those are great times. I mean, I say, I was so fortunate last year. Last year we actually rented Barron, and it was my 100th win.
Oh wow!
There, and the guy asked me, and I said, when I walk nearly in every stadium here around Rome and Floyd County, every yard line has a story. I mean, I can tell you. Nearly every yard line, there's a story where we lost a region championship to a hook and ladder to Murray County by 1 yard at my feet. Now, that was when Pickett was
This was the penetration overtime game?
Yes, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember whenever I was told, I guess it was my first year as a coordinator, Matt Holder. He had hurt a finger. First series of the first game, and they walked up to me and said he's done for the year. And we didn't have a second quarterback, and he was back a week later. But I could go down through there and I could tell you, the different places where I was standing whenever these moments happened, and it's pretty neat, to do that. I remember they were asking me about at Coosa, and I remember, Coosa. And I know they're getting ready to get turf, and that's awesome for them. But they may have one of the best grass fields out there.
It always has been. Always has been.
Well, okay, if you go back to the 90s, the end zone by the scoreboard, the ball would roll out of bounds.
Had a fantastic crown on the the grass is always great, though.
I know the people used to always laugh. They say, if you stood on the sideline and looked across, you could only see from the waist up at the other coaches.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a great field. I've never coached from that side of it.
I played my very first football game on that field.
Oh, really?
For East Rome Junior High in 1991.
Oh, that's cool.
I got mashed on the opening kickoff. It was fantastic.
Yeah, sure. But, it's just funny how memories flood back, when you walk around and stepping out and, thinking about having the conversations that you have with players. And championships won, championships lost. I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So you, again, kind of to bring this back around, you won this championship after 3 other shots at it, you know, in different levels, and, you know, high school ball and pro ball. And you know, I was talking to my brother last night. They won one out at Hutchinson Junior College a couple years ago. And then the same guys, he was off the staff at that point. He moved on. But the same guys went back and lost one the next year.
Right.
You know, and the head coach, Drew Dallas, was saying, I can't imagine having lost my first time there as opposed to winning the first. So, like, you may not ever get another shot. You know, you get –
That's right.
Everybody only ever wants to go to a championship game. That's all you ever want. And you make it and you lose. Yeah. And you got to deal with the fact that I might not ever get another shot. Yeah. And God's been good to you, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, Tony Dungy, I heard him speak. This has been I was at Rome.
Yeah.
And he made the comment, it's after they won the Super Bowl. And he goes, you know, the thing that's so crazy about our profession, there's only one man in the world that is the head coach of a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
Only one man.
Yeah, he's it.
And he goes, so to think that that's what you have to do and that's your identity, I can tell you right now that I say the pain of a loss, and that's probably not the right, maybe I guess for lack of a better word, you know, just the feeling of emptiness from a loss is so much stronger than the essence of victory.
Yeah.
You know, you know, the old saying, you know, you can write a page from a victory and a book from a loss.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, last year, you know, getting beat, you know, and then thinking about it all year, but not really, I didn't feel bad now. I will say the one that we lost with the Renegades, well, not my first year. My first year, we went on a roll and shouldn't have been there. We were.
Yeah.
And ran into a team that got after us pretty good. But my second year, that was the year we lost 5 to the CFL the week before the playoffs. We lost the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I just felt like we let one really, 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 really slip.
Yeah. Hey, even losing Marcus and all those guys, right. I thought we still could have beat Canton.
Yeah. Just and then, you know, like I said last year, I mean, we were just, you know, I mean, we were confident going into the game, but at the end of it, we realized it was 2 good football teams.
Yeah.
One had to lose. And unfortunately,
well, that's the way that game went, right? It was, you know, almost who was going to have the ball last there.
Right. We got tackled on 13 going in.
Yeah. It just kind of was what it was. But, I mean, you were to be in it at the end. All you want is a chance at the end.
Well,
right?
Okay, so it's funny that you say that because that's what I tell the guys every day. I said, all I've ever wanted is an opportunity to prove I'm somebody instead of a nobody. I don't want you to give me nothing else. And as an athlete, that's all you should ever ask for is the opportunity. Yeah. And then you have to stand up on your own 2 feet. And which is so opposite of what the world tells us. Yeah. You know, instead of give me, no, just the opportunity. And then let me, you know, prove my worth. And so that's our calling card. That's from day one. That's all we talk about is, and that's what I tell them. You know, as we were marching towards this, I'm like, you know, there's few teams once we won the region championship. And I said, you look now, there's only one other team in the state in our league that's in the same boat. Right. So that's the opportunity that we have.
That's what we always used to tell teams when we were 3-6 going into the last game. And go, after this week, only one team gets to win their last game. You know, let's win let's win number 10 here and get out of here. But no, but it's we're going to wrap up here in just a minute. But I want to run one more thing by you while I had you here. Yeah. We've talked about you as a football coach. We've talked about you working for FCA. You're also a pastor. Yeah. You also got to be a husband and a dad and all these things. What are your thoughts on how you balance all that? How do you do it?
Well, I'll talk to my wife.
Yeah.
No, I tell you, Danny, this is the deal, okay? And I'm pretty old school when it comes to this. I believe that now, in my world today, that God is number one. Sure. My wife is number 2, not my family. My wife. Okay. All right. And I tell my coaches this is that I understand that sometimes life happens. Yeah. But don't use your family as an excuse not to be accountable to the other people that you hold accountable. Right. And that's kind of harsh, okay? But that's just the way I look at it. If I sign up for this and I sign up to be a football coach, what I'm doing is I'm committing to whatever the number is of players that I'm going to be there and I'm going to get them ready. And then if I'm very quick to run and leave practice because my daughter has a piano recital or because she has a birthday party, I'm sorry, then I can't hold my players accountable to that.
Yeah.
Okay? And, being a former coach, that when you have players missing, there's a hole in your practice schedule. Now, we understand that life happens and there's tragedies and there's things that occur.
Right.
But don't go looking for them for a reason not to do your job.
Yeah.
And I know that comes off kind of harsh to people, but I just believe in if I'm going to hold you accountable, then I got to hold myself accountable.
You have to be accountable,
I'll give you
right?
one. So I had a situation this year, not feeling good, went in and had some blood work and had a heart attack. Didn't know it.
Holy smokes, Coach.
So, didn't know it. So I had surgery on Tuesday. I got released on Wednesday, and I was at practice Wednesday afternoon.
So your players have no more excuses after that.
No, that's why I tell them.
You just play the heart attack card.
Well, the other thing too, and I say, and everybody's like, that's extreme. Well, my point was this. I knew that I was going to be, I was just going to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a lot more of those situations that I've had in my life. And I just believe that if I'm going to hold people accountable, that I've got to go way above and beyond.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I was at Trine, and it's going to sound really bad, but I don't care. I was at Trine, and my wife calls and says, I'm having some chest issues. I think I need to go to the hospital. And I said, okay, I'll be there as soon as football practice is over with. Now, she had a car wreck last year, and I left and skipped football because she had.
Yeah.
But I say all that to you, not to act like I'm. My point is that, as coaches, our word has got to mean something, and we can't apply it just when it's easy for us.
Right.
And I just think, especially in today's world, man, I want to give our guys an example of right and wrong, and not of excuse making. And I know sometimes that sounds harsh or comes off harsh. I don't mean it that way. I just think it's a tough lesson. That's why I love football.
Yeah.
Okay, because in the game of football, I tell our guys this all the time. In the game of football, you get hit in the mouth. You've got about 25 seconds to decide whether or not you're going to be a coward or you're going to stand back up. And that happens over and over.
50, 60,
and
70
over,
times
right?
a night. Yeah.
And like you said, you talk about lights coming on kids. I can nearly go back to every kid I've ever coached, whether it would be at practice or at a game. In between one of those hits or one of those plays, the light clicked. And I don't know when it's going to click for anybody. We can't predict it.
Yeah.
But I can go back and I can talk about Rome, and I can tell you on the field where different guys the light came on.
Yeah.
And they were anywhere from their 10th grade year to their junior year that the light came on. And it comes on because, I think it talks about it in the Bible, is that iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you don't get stronger lifting the same weight. And we have to deal with trials and tribulations, and none of us want to be martyrs, and none of us we're not dumping gas on our head so I can prove that I'm tougher than you.
Right.
But what we have to see is that whenever you're being asked to be accountable, are you going to be accountable?
So that's it, right? That's how you maintain that balance.
That's me, you know, and I will say this now. I know we got to finish, but I'm not one that carries it home. I mean, that's one thing my wife will tell you is that on Saturdays you don't know if I've won or lost,
right?
Because I'm not a sulker. I'll go back to work, but like when I get done with Friday night, I always struggle going to sleep on Friday, not because I won or lost, just because I've been in the middle.
You've been jacked up all night.
You made 1,000 decisions, and your brain's still racing through them all. Saturday is kind of family day. For 30 years, my wife has gotten up and she's cooked breakfast on Saturday morning. And whenever, when the kids were little, she found every festival there was in Rome, Georgia to go to.
We got a bunch of them.
Didn't have no money, so, we were going and doing all the different festivals. And then somewhere around 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, I'd put on my coaching hat and I'd start working. Yeah. And then that's what we did. And my daughters were raised on the practice field. I mean, I remember when Kaylee was a little girl, she'd run out on the field and she'd run up to guys and say, "Put me on your shoulders," no, that's Coach Hump's daughter.
Yeah, don't touch her. Yeah.
So I'd have one, but that's just what we did, you know. And but that's what we signed up for.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that with some of the young people today. I'm talking young coaches, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
that's why we got guys like you around, man, to raise those guys up.
Well, yeah, trying to.
You got a book in there somewhere, But yeah, we'll have you back on again, and we can talk into more about some of this stuff. But it's been great having you on.
Well,
thank you so much for coming out, Thanksgiving week and spending this time with me. And
talking ball, right?
Yeah, you can always do that, right?
I always talk ball, tell stories. I think that's been one of the privileges of coaching this long is getting a setback. And I remember as a young coach, man, I listened to all these guys tell all these stories.
Yeah.
And Coach Akers got a great one about Earl Campbell, but that's another story. But just so many stories,
Yeah.
And these heroes and stuff that we had as little kids and the impact that they made, because coaches were the most important influencer in my life. They were. I mean, my family, but no. It was
for so many young men. Yeah. Well, good deal, man. We'll jump off right there. Again, thank you for coming out.
You got it.
God bless you guys. We love you. See you next time.